All right, well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'd like to call the November 9th, 2020 Left 2 Board meeting to order, and we'll start off with a moment of silence to remember our fallen brothers and sisters. All right, thank you. We do have a quorum, so our first item of business is the approval of the minutes from our September and October meeting. Is that correct, Steve?
Yes, and if you can do them one at a time, that would be preferred.
Got it. I will entertain a motion to adopt our September or approve our September meeting minutes.
I will move the
Jeff
approval of
Foley, so moved.
September. Second.
Got it. So we have a motion been made and seconded to adopt our September meeting.
If I CC him on that memo.
We'll do a voice vote,
Yep.
if that's acceptable.
Yes, please. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Well, let's do roll call, I guess. Pat McElligott,
Aye.
Ade,
Aye.
Senator Holy,
Aye.
Tarina,
Aye.
Representative Berquist,
Aye.
AJ,
Aye.
and Chair Lawson.
Yes. Aye.
And did I miss anybody? Okay.
All right. Motion carries to adopt the minutes. Thank you. Entertain a motion to adopt our October board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second? Motion's been made and seconded to adopt our October minutes. Discussion.
Can you hear me now? Can everybody else hear me?
I can hear somebody really, really light.
Looks like it's Pat trying to speak. We can hardly hear you, Pat.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me. Okay. Do you need me to aye?
Now we're starting.
I'll count that as your October aye. Yes. Hold on. Okay. Seeing no discussion, we'll go roll call vote. Steve, go ahead.
Senator Holy,
Aye.
Ade,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Tarina,
Aye.
Representative Berquist,
Aye.
AJ,
Aye.
Chair Lawson.
Aye.
That's everybody.
All right. Thank you. Minutes for September and October have been adopted. I'm just amazed that Pat has not been electrocuted yet by trying to multitask two computers. It's quite amazing. You know, I can hear him struggling. So, all right. Looks like item number 2 of our meeting is the DRS annual update, and I saw Tracy. And I'm not sure who else was going to join us. So, Steve, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah. When the
Hello,
board,
Steve. Can you hear me?
yes, Mark.
Gotcha.
Okay, I'm here and I vote aye. Sorry, it took me a while to get connected.
We're good. I'm
Okay.
just introducing Tracy for her annual update. When the board was first created, there was some discussion at that time about whether the board would take over administration of benefits for Left 2. And at that time, the discussion was, or the idea was, that it would be very difficult, if not impossible, for the board to administer benefits as efficiently as DRS had been, or with the type of customer service that DRS was delivering. And so the decision of the board back then was that DRS would continue to administer the benefits, and then that they would provide you an annual update about how customer service was going with respect to LEF, and also with any questions about how cost effective the administration of benefits was. And so you've had those annual updates in the past from the director and from Mark Feldhausen. This morning, we're hearing from DRS Director Tracy Guerin. And with that, Tracy, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Steve. Good morning, Chair Lawson and members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here today. Mark Feldhausen is also online with us, just in case you have specific questions about customer service or cost analysis for the department. And additionally, Sean Merchant's here, and he's going to follow me with a couple of technical policy changes that we'll be looking at for the 2021 legislative session. As Steve said, for the record, my name is Tracy Guerin, and I serve as the director of the DRS, of the Department of Retirement Systems. So you all have seen this slide before, but most importantly to you, I want to talk about LEF members. We have about 18,700 LEF members in the system that are active. We have 7175 that are retired, and almost 4,000 that are inactive just in LEF 2. As you can see, the department is small but mighty. We bring in a lot of contributions from employers, $5 billion, and we send out almost $6 billion in benefits, which of course includes some of the LEF members. So benefits paid by county, I always find this really interesting. I'm just seeing how much goes out to each of our counties and how we really are an economic engine for the state of Washington. Our retirees, rather, are an economic engine for us. This represents all of the Department of Retirement Systems, so all of our public systems. This picture shows you just LEF 2 benefits. So as you can see, the LEF 2 retirement system is really important also for the state of Washington. Again, we have 7,175 annuitants in 2020, which is about, almost $300 billion, and we have 84% paid in state. So that's, like I said, it's a big number. Lots of folks are in your system that we help take care of with you. So as Steve mentioned, one of our responsibilities is to talk to you about what our costs are to administer all of the systems. So again, this is not just administering LEF, but administering all the systems across Washington state. So DRS total cost per member includes the cost of the actuary, and these are really only talking about our common pension administrative services. So these are, as you can see, we're at about $62, and the pure medium is 89, and the average is 100. So we're really considered one of the lowest cost systems across the nation that are in our peer group. So we're in the 25th percent quartile. So one of the things that we really appreciate about this data that we get out of a system out of a company in Toronto is that they really allow us to look at, if we start creeping up in our costs, we can analyze why, because we provide lots of data as do our peer systems to help us understand where we're spending more money than other peer systems are, where we're spending less money. It helps us look at it against customer service. Are we spending enough to have good customer service? There's a lot more data that's behind this. And this year, just because of COVID and everybody's a little short on time, you're not getting the full-on CEM presentation that you normally would. But we're happy to send out those slides or whatever additional information that could be helpful for you to be talking to your members about the cost of DRS. But I will say that DRS, long before I got here, and since I've been here, has been in this lowest quartile for cost, which is impressive considering our customer service scores, which is next. So, I thought Mark put a customer service score in. Maybe he can talk about that quickly. This is at the pension administration. This is the number of FTEs that we have per 100 annuitants. And so as you can see, again, we're very low. Although our customer service scores are high, we do have a low number of FTEs per member. So, hey, Mark, can you jump in and talk about the customer service scores really quick? Can someone unmute Mark so he could talk about that?
Yeah, Tammy's trying to unmute Mark, Tracy.
Okay. I apologize. I thought we had that slide in the stack. If you can't unmute, we'll certainly send it along.
I think I've been unmuted.
Oh, good. Mark, could you talk about that?
Sure, let me pull up our service score was at 77, and that's also a composite score of numerous measures. I think they have close to 80 different indicators in the 1,000 questions that they ask us. And the peer median was 77. So we were right on the peer median for total service, even though, as Tracy had identified, we're in the lowest quartile for cost. In looking at the items that CEM would identify that we could do to actually improve our score, the report goes into quite a lot of detail on all the incremental changes that we could make to essentially try to get to the the 100-point level. And the bulk of the ones that were identified as having kind of the top 5 pointed things that we could do really dealt with the most part in our phone system. Answering, we get like an additional 3.07 points if we answered more of the calls in under 60 seconds. Another almost 2 points if you reduce the number of abandoned calls, and an additional almost 1.5 points if we reviewed more incoming calls for coaching purposes. So you could either record them or have a senior retirement specialist listening in on a phone conversation with a member and then coaching the retirement specialist after the point. In the presentation I had with Mike Heel to the select committee, the reason we talked about these in addition to having the FTE slide is that you're getting into services where you really can't build a system to solve this. It's an FTE intensive service component. But we do focus on the service score for ideas, because the survey information that we get back, the analysis we get back from Toronto of what the other systems are doing in North America as well as Europe and around the world, gets at those ideas on what can you do to provide better service to your customers in a way that doesn't drive up your costs significantly. And we've always held that the thing that we need to do first is to talk with our members and our stakeholders as far as what do they want us to do, not just what can we do to increase our score in a benchmarking survey.
Thank you, Mark, for jumping in. So I hope that that piece was helpful and kind of ties the bow around what Steve said our obligation is to you as your service provider for the retirement system that you oversee. So any questions before I move on to DCP? Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about was the deferred compensation program. As you know, we're super proud of how we're handling this in the state. We now have auto enroll. We're hitting at about 95%, which we're super excited about. That means more people have a supplemental retirement savings plan than ever before in our systems, or rather the systems that have adopted our state's deferred compensation program. And just to reflect on that for a moment, we have about 21.5% of non-state agencies participating. And then, of course, we have a small mixture of higher education, a small mix of the school districts, and the bulk of it is state agencies at about 55.7%. The interesting thing I think about the auto enroll is how members are behaving with it. So 59% of participants are contributing a flat amount. 49% are contributing a percentage, so it's going up as they receive pay increases, which I find that very gratifying. And then 7% of our participants are contributing the maximum, which of course is small, but still good to know people are taking advantage of that tax deferral and of readying themselves for retirement. One of the things that the department that we kick around quite often is, should we have an auto escalation along with the auto enroll, especially for those flat participants, right? So that it escalates up with them. Something that we're thinking about, we will continue to collect data and look at that, because we all know how important retirement savings are for people to live comfortably in their retirement years. So as you can see, the retention rate is 92%, so we're happy about that. I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about our response to COVID because it's just been such a truly, truly unusual year, which I know you all are experiencing. We're all doing everything virtually. We early on in March suspended on-site services just because we actually had members coming into the building, and I would go down and talk to them. I'd say, so were you not able to get services from us online, or did you know about our online services? And this is when we were really in the height of the pandemic in March. And more often than not, the members who were coming in person were saying, well, you know, I'm working from home, so I just thought I'd drop by. And it was like, oh my goodness, we're putting them at risk. We're putting our team members at risk. So March 17th, we sent all of our team members home, with the exception of a small cadre of folks who stayed in the building to bring in money, get money out, send things out that needed to be sent out, collect mail, those types of things. So with that pivot, we got to about 90% of our team members working remotely. It was successful, I will say. Within a couple of days, people were very productive. And then as we went along, we learned, well, we're going to be here longer than we thought. We're going to need to send home chairs. We're going to help them get sit-stand workstations. So we started working with surplus property, and we were able to offer our team members the opportunity to purchase some of our old chairs and equipment, our sit-stand workstations, which was fantastic. And we were able to continue our regular phone and email services, including getting retirement applications processed and getting retirement benefits processed and paid on a regular schedule, because we had enough team members in the building. But we also had the right equipment for our team members to be able to continue doing all this work remotely. We also continue to present live education webinars in place of our in-person workshops. We're a really high uptick rate on that, which is fantastic, and allows us to reach so many more people, right? So we've learned a lot of what we can do differently. What we also know is that we need to start providing some face-to-face interaction for members, because some members simply don't like doing everything online. They want to look at somebody, they want to see them in the eye, and they want to hear that their benefits being processed, or whatever concern they might have, they want to see us. So we'll be looking in January at how we might go forward in a virtual way to be able to have Zoom meetings with members. It'll be a limited number a day. But team members will actually be able to Zoom in with members of the systems and talk to them about their dissatisfaction with our services. They're happy with it. You know, they were wondering about something, but we want to provide that way for them to have in-person interaction with us like they have for so many years. So that's our next step there. And lots of people say, so when are you bringing people back? And I just don't know. I don't think anybody really knows the answer to that question. But we do know we can provide a high level of service in the way that we're doing it today. We've received very few complaints. And so we'll continue on this road, working with individual team members about when they want to come back in the building, how can we bring them in safely? Or if someone simply can't work efficiently and effectively from home, we're working with them to how to bring them in the building safely. So as I said, we continued with everything we were doing anyway. We had a pretty significant budget request that we needed to fulfill. One was getting our building remodeled. That all got done on time, even though we had to send the contractors out of the building for a couple of weeks before we could bring them back in. Pretty much everything's done now. We're working on the exterior. One of the great things for our members when they are able to come back physically into the building, we have a walled-in vestibule, so they can wait. If they come before 8 a.m. when we open, they don't have to wait outside or in their car. They can wait in our vestibule and wait for us to open up. We've got a separate entrance for team members, which is a safety issue, which we're super excited about. But most importantly to me is we will now have a generator, so that when the power goes out, which it does a couple, 2-3 times a year, all our systems won't go down, and it won't take us a day to bring them back up, because that's an impact to our members. So again, really thinking about the things we've done in the building really are a service to our members. Our reception area, if you will, is definitely COVID ready. It's all plexiglassed in. We have more meeting rooms so that when people can come back in physically, they can have their own meeting room. We can have more team members meeting with members at a time. So we're pretty excited about the new space and are excited to actually get to really use it. We also continued on with our record keeper transition from Empower to Voya. That occurred, let's see, September, forgive me, I think it was September 21st. And we did that on time. Again, did it all virtually. That's the first time we've ever had to do that. Made testing really challenging, but we got through it. We've made the transition. As you can imagine, we've hit it, a few little bumps, but when you really think about what we did, transitioning all of our different compensation, all of our Plan 3s into a different record keeper, it really went smoothly. We're delighted with it and looking forward to working with Voya. They're providing great customer service and are working really well with our financial folks. And then finally, our core program, which is a way for us to update all of our systems. Our systems are very dated, super difficult to make changes to when the legislature makes a change. They're all mainframe. So the first phase of that program, if you will, is to move to cloud mainframe services. So we're getting off the mainframe, should reduce our costs, allow us to drive more into the new system enhancements and replacements. So working on that, that should be done by the end of this fiscal year. So by end of next June, we remain on track to do that. So questions on our response to COVID-19 or things you may have heard that I need to hear? Hearing and seeing none, I'm moving on. So we understand, along with everyone else, that it's going to be probably a pretty challenging economic environment coming the next biennium. We're super glad that the revenues have stayed high enough. We're not general fund, but we're glad for our partner agencies who provide important services to Washingtonians, that we aren't going to have to take the deep cuts that we originally thought we were going to. So we really skinnied down what our request was, even though, again, it's not related to general fund revenue, but it is related to our employers and what they pay. So we want to make sure we don't have any rate changes. We want to make sure that we're only doing what we really need to do in this next biennium. So first and foremost, we need to continue on the program to create an outstanding retirement experience for our members. We want to make sure that we can upgrade our pension administration system so that it provides services online. We can make easy changes to it, and that we continue to do this modernization so we don't get caught flat-footed and have something break, or have a few members retire who are the only ones who built these systems and know the language. So that's one. The second one, we asked for this last biennium, and the idea was that diversity, equity, and inclusion resources would be located through the Office of Financial Management in a centralized fashion. That didn't come to bear because of the economic downturn. That was one of the things that the governor said we're not going to do. So I'm going and asking for that again. I think we're doing a fine job of moving forward in this area, but we're not making the progress that I would hope we could make, or that we could make if we actually had someone here really helping in that effort. Super important, especially customer facing as our membership changes and the members retiring look different than we do, have different values than we do, have different lifestyles than we do. We really need to start working on that now so that we're in front of that wave. And finally, as you know, we have so much data, and I've shared this with you before, it scares me some days. And one of the things I just want to stop doing is I want to stop using our Social Security number, the last 4, in correspondence and trading information. We need to move so that we're using the member number instead of that. And so I want to work on getting our system so that we don't need that to find things. That's how we find things right now. It makes me crazy. So those are our 3 requests. Probably more than you're used to seeing from the department, but it's really related to that upgrade of the pension administration systems. Mark works tirelessly to make sure that we are spending within our means and not ending up with a rate increase. So he keeps us in check on that, which I really appreciate. So with that, I'm just stand for questions, or Mark, if you have questions related to our CEM benchmarking survey.
So this is Mark Johnson. I do have a question for you.
Okay.
So my question is the administrative charge that DRS levies for employers, is that going to be impacted all by the budget?
No, it remains the same. Mark, do you want to
Okay,
add?
is that a statutory charge, or is it discretionary according to what DRS needs to get from the employers to manage?
It's discretionary according to what DRS needs to manage, but anytime we have an increase in our rate, it would go through OFM and have to be approved there because it would be related to the budget. But we do work really hard, I just want to reiterate this, to not have an impact to employers, especially in this kind of an economic environment. It's not the right thing to do. So my belief is we should try to, keep a steady rate so that you're all used to that same rate. And then we are able to save up a little bit of money and use it to do things like core.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Mark, did you want to add anything to that?
No, that was spot on. Thank you.
Okay. I always like to check because they're all way smarter than I am. I can guarantee you that. Okay. Thank you, Chair Lawson.
Hi, this is Pat.
Hi, Pat.
Hey, Dennis, the witching hour is showing up for me at 10 o'clock, so if you need me, do you still have a quorum?
We do, thank you.
Okay, if you need me, text me and I'll come back on.
Sounds good. Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, you guys.
All right, any other questions for Tracy?
I would just like to say thank you to Tracy. She's been an advocate for continued cooperation between DRS and the Left 2 board. As questions come up, her team has been super responsive, and I appreciate that partnership. So I wanted to say thank you for that.
Ditto. Thank you, Steve. We feel the same way.
All right. Steve, item number 3 appears to be the possible DRS request legislation. Request.
Okay. We've got Sean Merchant, who's the legislative director for DRS. He'll be joining us to talk about some things that DRS is going to be working on this session and how they may or may not impact Left Plan 2. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sean.
Thank you, Steve. Hope everyone can hear me. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. It's a pleasure to come back and talk to the board every year. I wish we could do this in person because I really enjoy the face-to-face interaction, but I guess this is as good as we're going to get right now. As Steve said, the downturn and COVID kind of put a change in some of the direction we were thinking about in terms of policy asks or things with the legislature, and necessitated us to kind of look at some different ideas to protect people's service credit and average final salary in the pension statutes, but also something came up that we didn't really anticipate with the use of the shared work program through Employment Security Department. So that's kind of the direction that we're thinking for legislative proposals. We're thinking of 2 possible bills. They are in a sense related because they relate to members being furloughed or possibly being furloughed. Let's start with the shared work bill. That was necessitated when public employees started using the shared work program that Employment Security Department administers. There was a statutory change in 2013 at the federal level to the shared work program that rendered our ability as public employers' ability to opt into the program, made it illegal or not possible because the federal government said you cannot reduce a person's benefits if they join shared work. And because our statute was not amended to kind of keep up with the federal statute, public employees' pension benefits would be reduced if they're not making as much money. And therefore, you couldn't join the shared work program because your benefit wasn't going to remain at 100% level as if you had not been furloughed. So when we discovered that, we did a technical change through an administrative rule to cover that for about the 3 months, July, August, and September. That rule, being an emergency rule, expired the middle of October. And we also realized in order for this to go forward on a more permanent level, we need to have a statutory fix that would go back and be curative in nature also, and retro fix the bill, if you will, to make it in line with the federal requirements that your pension not be reduced. So that is a really technical bill to the employment security statutes. It's RCW 50, Title 50. But we would need to do that in order to keep using the shared work program in the future if the economic downturn still continues. So that's kind of bill number one that we're working with OFM on. We have talked to, obviously OFM, the governor's office. We've talked to the Senate Ways and Means Chair, the House Appropriations Chair about our bill also. And the second bill, again, relates to it. It relates to the furlough protection. It's basically a reboot of the 2008 bill when the economic crisis occurred then, and furloughs became a reality for budget writers to help control costs with budgets. There was a bill back then that protected members' average final salary period, and said that if you're furloughed in the last 5 years of your career, your average final salary period, it would not negatively impact your benefit. So we are basically redoing that bill for the next two biennium up to 21-23, but also we are going to add a little bit more to that and protect service credit for members. So your service credit would not be negatively or adversely impacted also if you're not working full time, because there may be instances of a part-time employee. A lot of community college, technical college professors may not be full-time, and if they are reduced hours more, they may drop below the point at which they get sort of the full service credit. So the bill would also, in addition to protect the average final salary period, would protect service credit, so people would not have their service credit negatively impacted as well. But basically it is a reboot of the earlier bill in 2008, 2009. And again, we have spoken and are working with the governor's office on these bills. We have spoken to Ways and Means Chair and Appropriations Chair about the bills, and labor organizations on these bills also. And I wanted to bring them up to you because I know that some of your members may be looking at being furloughed. And so we thought it would be important for you guys to hear about what we're proposing to protect members' salaries and service credit, and then also the possibility of being able to use shared work as that stopgap measure that it is intended to help people with some additional unemployment compensation. So not a lot changed what we were thinking about doing, but thought I would let you know. And if you have any questions, absolutely love to answer those.
Sean, do you have any data about left two members that were affected by either, that would be affected by either of these? Or is it too soon for that?
I think it may be a little soon. We had some information on public employers that had used shared work in the past, but I couldn't tell you if they were left members that have participated or not. I don't have access to that specific data.
Sean,
know,
sorry, Steve.
Jim?
Go ahead there.
Oh, go ahead, Dennis. I'm sorry.
Sean, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Question. So the previous bill, if I recall, had a component that if you had an agreed upon wage and part of like a succession, you gave something back, that DRS would recognize that. Is that also in this bill?
I think the idea is, yes, you would it would protect whatever salary you had as
Negotiated.
if you had reduced hours, it would be as if you had not had that at all.
And I think especially after the weekend, I would just add in that the shared work program may likely be highly used if there's a second stimulus package that's similar in economics to the first stimulus package. So, basically what happened is that employers were able to get, employees were able to get another $600 in their weekly stipend from unemployment insurance that didn't cost the employers, even though they were self-employed. And so self-insured. So that was why a lot of employers were looking at the shared work program, and why we think it's really important to get a long-term fix to this one, because we see that potentially happening again. Sorry, Sean.
Nope.
Any other questions? Sean, got more?
Looks good.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Mr. Nelson, turn it back over to you again. Looks like item number 4, interrupted military service credit.
Okay, the board got some homework for this interim from the legislature. And we're going to hear about that in the next 2 presentations from Jacob. The first bit of homework that the board got was to work with the Select Committee on Pension Policy on studying the issue of interrupted military service credit, the idea of expanding interrupted military service credit to include other types of non-combat service. We've got an update on that from Jacob about where things stand. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jacob.
Okay. Good morning, board members. For the record, Jacob White, staff to the board. I just want to start off, if you're having any issues hearing me, please let me know. I know last time there was some issues and I could turn my video off, and that helped it. I've got a kindergarten and 2nd grade going on in my house, so hoping the Wi-Fi can hold up. So in front of the board today, interruptive military service credit. So the issue here is, what is the impact of expanding no-cost interruptive military service credit to include those who have been awarded an expeditionary medal? I know this issue has been in front of the board a lot over the last few years, and so I'm going to keep it pretty high level until we get to the new information that we've received from the state actuaries regarding cost impacts, which I know is really the point of this study. So like I said, quick reminder about what this benefit is. A member qualifies for interruptive military service credit when they take a leave of absence from a DRS covered position to serve in the United States military, and the member returns to their employer after their military service is complete. Now there's 2 types of service credit. There's fully subsidized, which is known as no cost interruptive military service credit. And then there's partially subsidized, which is a reduced cost interruptive military service credit. And really what's been at issue with this study and in the bills over recent years is that fully subsidized no cost service credit. So quick reminder of how we got here. So last session, the board sponsored a bill which redefined period of war to no longer identify specific conflicts and instead to recognize all service from which a campaign badge or medal was earned. The board did this because, well, one of the reasons you've heard about this issue year in and year out is that there's always either a new conflict that potentially qualifies, or an older conflict which the Department of Defense has upgraded the medals to where it now qualifies. And so the bill last year was to try to get at that issue. so that it wouldn't need to continually be updated every year or two. But the bill that did pass last year was not actually the board's bill, even though it did have the same language. The bill that passed initially proposed expanding the definition of period of war to include those who had received an expeditionary medal. The bill that passed also applied to all systems in plan, not just Left 2. But the bill was amended to not include expanding to expeditionary medals, and the reason for that was the unknown cost. The Left 2 board has repeatedly considered expanding, but that was why the board had also not ever, or one of the reasons potentially that the board had not chose to endorse legislation expanding the medal was the unknown cost. And so the bill that did pass also included language requiring the Left 2 board and the select committee to work together to study this issue and to identify the cost of expanding to expeditionary medals and to provide a recommendation to the legislature for next legislative session on whether to expand or not. So just a quick reminder again on the difference between these types of medals. So a campaign medal recognizes the highest level of personal risk and hardship. And one of the main differences, well, an expeditionary medal also recognizes a high level of personal risk and hardship. However, one of the key differences is that a campaign medal is typically only given when members are in an area where combat is actually occurring, while an expeditionary medal is typically in support of combat operations. That's not always true, but usually it is. So here's the new information that we're excited that we were able to get for you, that we were able to get the actuaries what they needed to cost this out after years of trying to locate this information. So OSA was able to price this benefit based on data that was provided by the Washington State Military Department that showed the ratio of campaign medals to expeditionary medals for members of the Air and Army National Guard in Washington State. They also reviewed other data we were able to provide them on other states who have similar benefits. However, they did not use that data for this cost because no other state awarded this benefit based on medal type received. So the cost here, I'm going to focus, the slide shows for all the systems and plans, so I'm going to go ahead and just focus on Left 2. So it was broken into two different categories, prospective and retroactive. And so the prospective means only future service where medals were awarded. So this does not include any members whose service has already occurred. It would just be future military service that qualifies. OSA found that the cost impact of this was less than 1 basis point for members. It had a 0.7 million 25-year cost, and the present value of future benefits cost was 0.6 million. For retroactive, this is it includes only medals that have been awarded to members already, and it would also include refunding payments made by members for partially subsidized service credit that would now qualify for no cost. And it would apply not only to active members, but also to retirees. And so the basis point impact of this would be 1.9. The 25-year cost would be 9 million. And the present value of future benefits impact would be 9 to 10 million. So the combined cost of doing a bill that would provide retroactive as well as prospective benefits would be approximately 9.7 million over 25 years and approximately 2 basis points. The actuaries did warn me that those their cost analysis there on prospective and retroactive were not additive, but it was a reasonable cost estimate. And that if there is a bill proposed during session, the actuaries would do a full fiscal note that would identify potentially a slightly different cost impact. Also, we got an updated fiscal note from DRS, and this was not for Left 2 only, it was for all systems and plans. And the cost, administrative cost would be just under $40,000. And that cost would, and so I should add, this was for both the retro and prospective. And most of the cost was regarding the retro part of this potential benefit. For reviewing old accounts, DRS estimated they would have to review approximately 900 accounts to see if those members qualified for this benefit. So as Steve talked about, the Select Committee has also been studying this issue. We've been working closely with OSA, who staffs the Select Committee. At this point, the Select Committee has not made a preliminary recommendation. In fact, Senator Schessler, the chair of the Select Committee, stated at their last meeting that he was interested in knowing what the Left 2 board wanted to do and possibly following your lead. I did include in your materials a letter from the Select Committee that they sent over after their October meeting. So the options in front of the board, the first option would be prospective plus retroactive. And so this expands fully subsidized interruptive military service credit to individuals who received an expeditionary medal. As I stated, approximately a $9.7 million cost over 25 years and approximately a 2 basis point contribution rate increase for members. Also, number 2 would be prospective only. That has a $0.7 million over 25 years and no contribution rate increase. And option 3 would be to maintain the status quo at this time and not expand fully subsidized interruptive military service credit to individuals who've received an expeditionary medal. And so the board's not required at this meeting to take any action. However, like I said, the Select Committee was interested in knowing what the Left 2 board wanted to do. And so yeah, it's kind of up to the board today whether to kind of take the lead or let the Select Committee go first. So that concludes my presentation. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Go back to the previous slide for you.
Jacob, this is Dennis.
Yes.
On number 3, maintain status quo, and then it says do not expand fully. I mean, that status quo could also mean we defer something for a period of time, correct?
Yes. Yes,
So,
I could see that making sense given the fiscal situation of the state this year, that there may be interest in waiting to propose any benefit improvements.
right. Okay. Questions for Jacob?
Mr. Chair, Jeff Holy.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I guess this is directed at Steve, just to start off. The binary or the three-way aspect of the decisions we're presented with for options here is not necessarily binding. If we wanted to tailor number 3 to accomplish something that would be more of a tabling, I'm echoing on my phone. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So to continue, if I were to make a motion that we table this until after the end of the next session, I do so, and then I'd ask to provide an explanation as to why.
Yeah, that is one way to deal with it. The board has done that in the past. You've also done motions where you would vote on it to just defer it to the next interim and put it on next interim's work plan. Either way, they accomplish the same thing. It's just procedurally they work a little bit different.
Well, let me amend that. Then I'll move to defer, because that would make more sense and would simplify it perfectly.
All right. from Senator Holy, a motion to defer. And I'm going to follow
Seconded by
up.
Senator Rivers.
Go ahead, Senator. Did she second? I'm sorry. Senator.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we do have a motion made and seconded to defer this issue until the conclusion of our upcoming legislative session. Is that
Well, Mr. Chair, could I explain my motion?
sure thing?
Perfect. The what we're seeing here and the work that Mr. White did is very clear. It's reasonable. The costs are not prohibitive, and it appears we're providing something that would be consistent with both our mission statement, fiduciary responsibility, and it's well founded. That being said, as everybody is painfully aware, we are in a little bit different environment this year to where anything we do is going to have the appearance of being inappropriate in consideration of the budget struggles that we're about to address, that would ask for any more money of any sort at all from anybody, even if a large part of it's coming out of our own pocket. I think in this time and in this situation, and I'll be consistent with this, I think for any proposed legislation that we're going to possibly address that would have a cost attached to it for the coming session here, that all of these be deferred until after the battle is fought and a foundation is laid as to how much money we have, get maybe a quarter's farther projections into revenue stream. Some other things are solidified so that we don't appear to be doing something that is inconsistent or inappropriate from an appearance perspective with the rest of the belt tightening that government's doing.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that. Any other discussion or comments related to the motion?
This is Representative Bergquist.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Dennis. I agree with Senator Holy, and I think the smart move here is just to defer till we have a little better budget situation, and I think it's all the intent of we finally found out this information. It's taken us years to get here. I think we can probably, especially if we're even looking at going retroactive, it's not the impact of this bill, depending on what we end up doing, it could cover anybody in this year situation either way. So I feel like this is a prudent move.
All right, thank you, sir. Any other comments? Hearing none. Not seeing anybody raise their hands or anything. So, Mr. Nelson, let's do a vote.
Senator Holy,
Aye.
Senator Rivers,
Aye.
Representative Bergquist,
Aye.
Mark Johnston,
Yes.
Ade,
Yes.
Tarina,
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
I think AJ still.
oh, AJ.
Thanks, Steve, for remembering me. Yeah.
I was going to have you last.
No, it's fine. I'll remember.
You.
I'll remember that, Steve. I will remember.
And then Mr. Chair.
Yes. All right. Hearing no's, the motion does pass. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Holy and Senator Rivers for that motion and second. Looking at item number 5 is the EMT study. Looks like Jacob's back up again for presentation.
Yes, this was another bit of homework assigned to the board from the legislature. There was a couple of bills last session dealing with providing service credit for some EMTs that worked in King County. And One bill had them going, getting some PERS service credit, and one had them getting LEF service credit. But there were questions raised about whether that was going to be permissible or whether it was going to create some issues under federal law. So the board was required to study that issue, look at the tax and fiscal consequences. And AJ is kind of giving you the follow-up on where things sit with that assignment. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Jacob.
Okay, for the record, Jacob White, staff to the board. So the issue in front of the board today is our EMTs who provided services from 1978 to 2003 in King County through intergovernmental consortiums eligible for retirement service credit in PERS. So in 2020, there was a bill that sought to provide a group of EMTs who had worked in King County for a consortium that included both King County and the Evergreen Public Hospital District membership in PERS for past service credit. During session, legal concerns were raised regarding whether the EMT's employer, for purposes of determining eligibility in PERS, was Evergreen or King County. After those concerns were raised, there was a second bill that was dropped that sought to provide that same group of EMTs membership in LEF 2 instead of PERS, although there were additional legal concerns raised about that, and that resulted in a budget proviso, which provided the LEF 2 board money to complete a study. Under that study, the board must examine the legal and fiscal implications of extending membership in the plan for that time period, including King County employers that might be included, benefits that would be paid to members on a prospective and retroactive basis, contribution requirements, and plan liability that would be created for employers, employees, and the state. The board received an initial briefing on this study from me a few months ago. Since then, board staff has worked with DRS and OSA to continue to gather information to complete the study in coordination with our tax counsel, Ice Miller. Ice Miller was provided more than 500 pages of information to assist with their analysis. And I should go ahead and add, when I wrote this presentation, we had not heard back from Ice Miller. We knew they were working hard to get through that 500 pages, and they did get back to me late last week. So I do have some information that's not included on the slides, but we did just receive that. So some quick high-level background on the history of EMTs in LEF 2. In 2005, the definition of firefighter in LEF was amended to include EMTs employed by a city, town, county, or district. Prior to that, EMTs were employed by local governments in health departments or other divisions of local governments where were members of PERS if the employer was either mandated or opted into PERS membership. And that's a key distinction between PERS and LEF. If an employer employs LEF members, then they are mandated into LEF. With PERS, some types of employers have the option to opt into PERS. So in 2017, there was a bill, it might be familiar to some on the board when we're talking about Evergreen Public Hospital District, that you might recall there's been some issues in the past regarding public hospital districts and whether they're members of LEF 2 or not. So in 2017, there was a bill that clarified that issue, that the districts were in fact LEF eligible, and that bill gave EMTs, made them eligible for past service credit retroactive back to 2005. So the key issue here is for the King County Evergreen Public Hospital District Intergovernmental Consortium, who is the employer? If the employer is King County, then the EMTs should have been in PERS because King County is a PERS employer. If the Evergreen Public Hospital District or Public Hospital is the employer, then those EMTs would not be eligible for PERS because Evergreen had not opted in to PERS. So you can't put employees into a public pension plan if their employer is not a member of that plan. That's really the kind of crux of the legal issue here. In situations where there is an intergovernmental consortium, the IRS would rely on a scope of control test to determine who the employer is for purposes of eligibility in the pension plan. The scope of control test, it is a very long test with more than 20 different factors that are that can be analyzed. It can go into weighing who the actual employer is. But those factors kind of roll up into three main categories that the IRS would look at. They'd look at the behavioral control of the employee, the financial control, and the relationship of the parties. So the ICE-Miller analysis, as I said, they were provided a lot of background information. I want to thank DRS for locating that. It took us a while to pin that down, but they were able to provide ICE-Miller with, as I said, more than 500 pages of background information on this situation to help with their analysis. ICE-Miller provided a draft analysis to us late last week, and we're still working through that. They used the scope of control test, and they found that the EMTs were correctly classified as employees of Evergreen Public Hospital District, not King County. So they found that Evergreen was what they called the lead employer, and like I said, there's a multi-factor test, but ICE-Miller really focused in on one specific issue. That the EMTs, they looked at how the EMTs were impacted when their contract with Evergreen was discontinued in 2002. When this happened, the EMTs became employees of the City of Redmond and Shoreline Medic 1. If they had truly been King County employees, ICE-Miller said that they would have remained with King County. There were other factors that ICE-Miller did look at, but that was the one that they found most compelling. So the next steps for this study, the Left 2 board is continuing to work with OSA and DRS on a fiscal analysis. There's been a lot of back and forth there with DRS tracking down information on these specific EMTs that this would impact and providing that information to OSA. An analysis will be available for the December board meeting. The study is due to the legislature January 2021. The board is not required to recommend a bill, just to complete the study. The fiscal analysis will identify the impact of these EMTs being eligible for, so the fiscal analysis that OSA is working on will identify the fiscal impact of this group of EMTs being eligible for membership in PERS. Specifically, would it cause a contribution rate increase to PERS? And then Left 2 board staff is going to continue to work with ICE-Miller to finalize their advice memo and provide that to the board along with a more detailed summary of their findings at our next board meeting. So that completes my presentation. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Any questions for Jacob? All right. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, Steve. Item number 6, benefit improvement account.
All right.
Looks like an educational briefing for us, huh?
Yeah, at the strategic planning meeting last month, there was some discussion about next steps for the benefit improvement account. And we told you at that time that we thought we might be able to, one of the first next steps was a request for an educational briefing. And so that is what you're getting now. I'm going to cover a little bit of the background and then move into where things stand currently. Tim is in the other room working my slides so that I didn't get control over the program, so we'll see how that goes. Tim, if you could go ahead and flip the first slide. Well, okay, we're off to a good start. The benefit improvement account was originally created as a way of funding benefit improvements in LEF 2 other than by rate increases. Right now, the only way you fund benefit improvements in any of the pension plans prior to this bill being passed was by contribution rate increases. And so there was some discussion with the legislature about the need for benefit improvements in LEF 2. The general idea being that you would normally say 60% of your pre-retirement income was considered sort of the floor that you would want in retirement. To get to 60% in LEF 2, you'd have to work a 30-year career, which is challenging for LEF members to do. A good chunk of LEF 2 members don't have Social Security. And so for those members, in particular, LEF 2 is their retirement. The legislature considered this issue, and at the time there was discussion about, for instance, setting aside a portion of the streamlined sales tax for LEF 2 benefit improvements. And ultimately, the legislature came up with a process where when state revenue grew above a certain threshold, then there would be an appropriation from the state general fund into this newly created LEF 2 benefit improvement account. And those appropriations would start off small, and they would grow to a maximum of $25 million per biennium into the benefit improvement account. The timing of the legislation was right before the market crash in 2008 and 2009. So to begin with, the revenue growth in the state didn't meet the trigger. And so no appropriations were made. Then when revenue growth did meet the trigger, there was delay. The legislature did not make the planned appropriation into the benefit improvement account. That went on for a couple of sessions, and eventually what was decided was that there would be an appropriation into the benefit improvement account, or a transfer really, of some money in the LEF Plan 2 retirement account into a sub-account, which is the benefit improvement account. So it was just moving some money from the big LEF 2 fund, if you will, into this sub-account where it was dedicated for benefit improvements. Then for another couple of years, the revenue growth again met the trigger, but the appropriations weren't made from the general fund until finally here a couple years ago, there was a bill that canceled all of the future scheduled payments from the state general fund into the benefit improvement account, no matter what the revenue trigger. So that whole schedule of payments, that revenue stream was canceled. And instead, there was a one-time transfer of money from the LEF Plan 2 retirement fund into the benefit improvement sub-account. And that was a $300 million transfer. It was a very substantial transfer. While after the benefit improvement account was passed, and while the discussions and stuff were going on about funding the account, the LEF 2 board began working on pricing different, what I would call frequently requested benefit improvements. So these were issues that the stakeholder groups were interested in, that plan members were interested in, understanding exactly how much did those cost. That began back in 2008, and here recently when the transfer of the $300 million was made, it was decided to start revisiting some of the pricing work that had been done in the past, because now it was over 10 years old, bringing it more current. And after that, then that's sort of where things sit now. There have not been any transfers into the account since the 300 million transfer, although the account is invested in the commingled trust fund, so it does earn whatever Left Plan 2 earns. And at the strategic planning meeting and in my one-on-one conversations with many of you, there was a number of goals, if you will, that were communicated to me for kind of the next steps. Tim, if you could advance to the next slide. So one of the things that we heard was, first of all, let's consolidate all this information, especially all the pricing information that was out there. Some of the information, like say the current balance of what's in the benefit improvement account, is not even easy to find. And the information that the board has had, the pricing information, that's all public, it's all on the website, but it's not in one space. So one of the things we heard loud and clear was consolidate all that information into one place, make it easily accessible. In fact, part of the suggestion was identify it on the front page of the Left2 board website with ability to get there in one click, so that if somebody's looking for it, all they have to do is go to left.wa.gov and they would see an easy one-click link to where all this consolidated information would be provided. And what the type of information was, one, all the current pricing that's been done, the most current pricing that's been done, and the balance of what's in the benefit improvement account. So Tim, if you could advance to the next slide. This is a mock-up of what the board website would look like when this benefit improvement account information center is put into place. So you'd see up on the top there would be a new pathway through member resources that could get you to the benefit improvement account information center. But if you also look down on the right where it's circled in red, there's a quick link. So you'd be able to, without doing any kind of digging at all, just go to that one link or that one spot, click on it, and you'd be immediately taken to the information center. Tim, if you could advance to the next slide. This is a mock-up of what the information center would look like based on where things, based on the information that we have now. So you see up at the top, sort of above the tables, there's a block. It says benefit improvement account balance as of June 30th, 2020, 341 million and change. That includes the 300 million that was transferred in there a couple of years ago. It includes the 20 million that had been transferred in the past, plus some earnings that have been earnings on the account. And then down below that in the table, you see the most recent pricing work that's been done by the board with the Office of the State Actuary. When that information was originally provided to the board, it was in the form of rate impacts. And so that's what you see in the first column, and that was what was in the information when the board saw it. But the next column over, the present value of future benefits. This is kind of taking that rate impact and converting it into a current dollar amount so that now you can compare it to what's in the benefit improvement account. You can see how close or how far away the benefit improvement is with the available resources. So just for example, if you look at multiplier, option number 1, increase the benefit multiplier to 2.5% prospective and retroactive. So that includes all past and future service of active members. That would have a cost of $2,343 million. So you see we've got $341 million in change in the benefit improvement account currently, so you'd be about $2 billion short of being able to afford that benefit improvement. And then in the third column, since this is this information center will be there on into the future, we want to make sure that the dates are clear, both the date for the benefit improvement account balance and the date for the pricing work. And this is going to be particularly important as time goes on. That benefit improvement account balance, that amount changes monthly. Every time the commingled trust fund is updated, the benefit improvement account balance is updated, but it changes very modestly. The board assumes that growth in the Love Plan 2 retirement fund is going to be about 7% a year. So you would expect that amount perhaps to go up by a little over 20 million a year, or 1 or 2 million each month. But so you can see how it's not going to change dramatically from month to month. I say that because the plan is not to update that account balance on the worksheet monthly. If there's something that creates a significant change, we can update it. Otherwise, we plan on updating it periodically, at least annually, but perhaps a little bit more often than that. And then the pricing information. Now, the costs of these benefit improvements can't be done without the Office of the State Actuary. And it requires a significant work load for the Office of the State Actuary to complete this type of work. So this is not going to be a situation where you're going to want to update these prices, monthly or even annually. This was a full year's worth of work to get the prices that you see on this worksheet right now, on this draft of the information center. But even if the prices are a little bit out of date, they're helpful for giving sort of the scale, if you will, of what kind of things are in the ballpark now with the amount that's available. So for instance, going back to the original example of the 2.5% multiplier retroactive, with that being $2 billion difference, an additional $1 or $2 million a month is not going to make a significant difference in understanding how affordable that benefit is today. And similarly, going back and asking OSA to update the cost is not going to change significantly. When it gets closer to the point where the board might be interested in making a recommendation on a particular benefit improvement, we could work on digging into the price a little bit different. Also, hopefully it'll give an idea for the stakeholders to consider where some of these benefit improvements might be tailored or adjusted to affect the cost, or what other items could be done. I know there was some talk last session about whether or not there would be possibilities in the future to make another transfer into the benefit improvement account. This information center is intended to be a one-stop place where you can have the most current, up-to-date information to sort of help facilitate those kind of discussions. If there's a question from a member about any of the pricing that's been done or how much is in the benefit improvement account, this information center should be able to answer all those high-level questions. Now, I hope that this draft, it's intended to kind of get your feedback, because the idea is that this meets the goal of having everything consolidated, simplified, easily identified on the Left 2 Board website, and being able to link to it in one click. So easily accessible, consolidated, and simplified. Now, with that, Tim, if you could advance to the next slide. We've talked about what it's going to take, or what it would take, to make changes to this. The other key point that I want to make is that any benefit improvement is going to require legislation. So there is, at the very least, this would also be a resource when it comes time for those bills, whether those bills are Left 2 Board bills, or one of the things that was mentioned last month is, depending on how long the discussions go on about what to do with the account, there may be parties outside the Left 2 Board that would be interested in or attempt to push legislation to use that benefit improvement account for some kind of Left 2 benefit improvement. But if you could go back to the last slide, Tim, this is a mock-up, and we've got it out there for you this month to kind of get your feedback. If you have any immediately, that's fine. If you want to take an opportunity to digest it and get it back, we'd like to get this up on the website as soon as you guys are comfortable with providing this information. With that, I think I'll turn it over for questions and or feedback.
I like it. I think it's a really great start where we can put all that information together, because it seems to be the most, or one of the most common questions that come, at least from our side of the world. The only thing I probably struggle with is that, we have the dates on that far third column, actually, in that one section where you have 11/15/2007, it talks about it's when the Left Board actually reviewed the information. What are the dates of the values that the costs related to it? When were those done? And I understand what you're saying because the impact related to OSA, but when were those numbers given? And then how often, I think it's part of your question, how often do we review these? Because you wait 3 or 4 years, those numbers, they're going to change pretty drastically.
They could, depending on what happens in those 3 or 4 years. But the dates are actually not just the dates that the board heard the information, but they also, if you'll see down on the bottom left,
I saw that, yeah.
Pricing information. OSA went in and identified which actuarial valuation report they were using to come up with pricing. So you're right, Dennis. Each actuary, we've already had one actuarial valuation report since then, in some cases more than one, and those prices will have changed. The year-to-year change is likely to be fairly modest, But some things like any changes that the board makes to any of the long-term economic assumptions could very easily change the pricing significantly. Any dramatic demographic changes. As time goes on and the number of retirees increases, for instance, you heard Director Guerin earlier today talk about how there's 18,000 active members and 7,000 retirees. Well, 6 years ago, there was more like 16,000 active members and 3,000 retirees. So as time goes on, the cost, particularly of some of those retroactive benefit improvements, will continue to increase more significantly than like the cost of prospective only would. But that's where things sit as far as the dates of the information go.
Steve, one more then. So for the total contribution rate increase, the way I read that, so if one of our members asked us what it was going to cost, I'm just looking at final average salaries in the middle, it's 4.84. So the simple math would be the employee's portion, is going to be 2.42.
Yep.
And that's how it breaks down. Then so there's a portion for the state. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and that would be an additional 2.42 on top of the 8 that they're paying now. Yes.
Okay.
Steve,
Yes.
So is that in combination with the benefit account balance?
No.
Or is it separate? Like, how does that play in?
So you would use the benefit account balance instead of a rate increase.
Right.
The rate increase amount was in there kind of to give one, that was the way the costs were presented to the board originally. And two, every now and then you'll hear about, some combination maybe thereof. So for instance, using Dennis's example of final average salary, this is not exact, but you've got 340 million in there, but it would cost $1 billion for the benefit. So could you pay for part of the benefit with the 340 million and then pay for the remaining 2/3 of the cost with a rate increase? And so that at least gives you an idea of still what you would be talking about in those kind of combined cost scenarios.
Thanks.
Questions for Steve? All right, and Steve, and you, your team, just so you're aware, we do have a stakeholder meeting coming up. I think it's November 17th or 18th, somewhere right around there. And so I imagine we'll be discussing this a little further as well. So it's good information right now. Thank you.
Dennis?
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, for clarification's sake, so the dollar amount in the fund now is $342 million. And all of these options are in billions, is that right?
Yeah, all of those are in millions. So the least expensive option that you see up there is the prospective 2.5% increase. That's number 2 on the multiplier, and that's 926 million, and you've got 342 in the account. So
Okay.
currently, none of the benefit improvements that have been priced by the board are capable of being purchased with the balance that's in the benefit improvement account.
Okay, so if we were to do any of them, we will have to increase the contribution whichever way.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Quick. One thing I'm just curious about is, were there other final average salary period looked at, going from 5 years to 3 or others? And then is there a way to have a column in here that say maybe the average retiree, what that benefit would actually mean to them, in an annual benefit? Is there anything that we have that would give people an idea when they're looking at the website what this actually means to them individually?
We don't, so backing up, back when the board originally did the pricing in, a little over 10 years ago, a number of different options were priced at that time. So for instance, for final average salary, you'd see from 5 years to 3. This time, because of the workload increase on OSA, the plan was to get some general stuff to give you a bit of scale. Some of these benefits are scalable, if you will. Instead of doing the benefit multiplier at 2.5, what if you did it at 2.1? Would that be roughly 20% of the cost, for instance? If there was more interest in a particular approach, like say the board decided, okay, final average salary is the way we want to go, but we can't do it all the way down to 2 years. So let's look at what it would take to go from 5 years to 4, just hypothetically. Then we could work with OSA to get a more detailed cost in that kind of scenario. And as time goes on, if there's interest in any of these in particular, we can work with OSA. I know there was a bit of work that was done a couple of years ago, for instance, on a multiplier for years 15 through 25, increasing the multiplier for that period of time, trying to get to 60% benefit after 25 years of service. So there's some general work maybe that's been done, and whether or not that could be built on if there was interest in that. I know the stakeholder groups have been talking about what their priorities for the benefit improvement account are. Did some survey work last year and are planning on following up on that survey work this year. We will have sort of a historical links, Representative Berquist, to some of the historical stuff. So for instance, you could see the pricing work that was done 12 years ago on the 5 years to 3 years AFC change. It's out of date, but it still might give you helpful scale. How much was that different from 5 years to 2, 12 years ago? And then you could do a little bit of back of the envelope math to give you an idea of if it's even remotely possible that could be within reach of the current balance.
Okay. What about the potential for having the average retiree benefit?
That's something. Yeah, that's something that hasn't been done, but it is something that I think would be possible. We need. It might be. Well, it would take some work. I don't know that we could have anything like that available before January, but if that is where you want to go with that, if that's that's a feedback that we're looking for. So if you're thinking that is, it might be a bit hard for a member to understand. What would a change in my multiplier for years 15 through 25 actually mean to me? Instead of doing that math themselves, having us project that and say, well, if you had a 25-year career and your final average salary was $80,000, this is the difference that would make in your benefit. I think something high level like that is possible.
I don't know, it's just me, but I think that would be helpful for somebody if they're viewing this page, just to get an understanding of what that would mean to them. I mean, that's why people are going to check these things out.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had a number of different questions. So most of the questions right now have been sort of generic. What is the board going to recommend? And that's been easy to say. It's like at this point in time, there's no recommendation that's being discussed. We've also had some questions about how much money is in the account. Had one here just recently. Somebody, I don't know where they got the information from, but they were under the impression that there was only $20 million left in the benefit improvement account. They wanted to know what happened to the rest of it. So if hopefully this will help distract from some of those, I don't know where, for instance, that a particular person got their information. But it's clear there isn't just $20 million in the benefit improvement account. There's 341. And nothing has come out of the account. There have been a couple of deposits, and then there's been some earnings, and that's been all the transaction history for the benefit improvement account.
So, Steve, this is Mark. I just have a comment, a couple comments. So I find this information very, very helpful and very useful in terms of just the raw data, and the numbers are very good for people to have access to, and put in one place is very good and very helpful. The other thing I'd say, just as a general comment to the board, is that people are always trying to dial in what this means to them specifically. And I get that, and I understand that, being a retiree myself. Those things are very important. What I would say, though, is that moving forward, it's important to manage people's expectations. And I think this is a great way to start helping people do that. And if they just see the scale of what's happening, hopefully it will give them a better picture of what this means and how expensive these are, and what it means to the employees, the employers, and the state as well, in terms of their particular responsibility for how much they're paying and for what they're getting. So that's just kind of a board thing for me, is that managing expectations is like when you're negotiating a contract, right? Everybody thinks they're going to get a whole bunch and what that means, and the guys at the negotiating table are looking at the numbers and figuring out that stuff out with their employers at the same time. And so this is sort of the same idea, and I think it's very important to help manage expectations of membership in a realistic way for people who aren't versed in contribution rates, what that means, what the impact is to their paycheck, what impact that is to the employer, what impact that is to the state budget when we're talking about increasing benefits. So I find this very, very helpful and a huge improvement. And I'm happy that you guys are doing this. I think it's very informational for people in a realistic way.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, any other questions for Steve on this?
The plan is that we will move forward with making the benefit improvement account information center active on the website as soon as possible. almost certainly before the start of session. And then Senator, let's see then. And to Representative Bergquist's comments, what we will do is start working on what would it take to kind of get that personal perspective, even an estimate on that. I think, and we'll see how quickly we can add that to this page. And then if we've got, when we make that update, we'll let you guys know. And as you, Dennis, for instance, if you want to use this mock-up for your stakeholder meeting, and then maybe you could give us some feedback from that in terms of whether or not it's helpful or what additional information on it would be helpful.
I appreciate that. Teresa Taylor from WACOPS is on right now listening as well. And so I'm sure the others are also. So I think it's good. I'll make sure I get it from you just to have the handout ready to go.
Yeah, it's going to be, it's on our website now. So this mock-up will be part of the board materials, and it's going to be on the website so that you can at least use this until we get the real information center live.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, thanks, Steve. Like
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Ade. Sorry, buddy.
Sorry. Steve, I was just wondering, can rate reduction be considered benefit? Like if we were to decrease or do a study on if we reduce the employees' contribution where their benefit remain the same, could that be considered benefit?
It's possible it could be. And again, it would take legislation, and that particular type of benefit improvement hasn't been discussed. There is a ratio for contribution rates in statute, 50-30-20, and there would be some issues potentially raised by deviating from that ratio. But if it was a deviation to the member's benefit, then it's potentially that could be considered a benefit improvement, and we'd have to look into that, but that's a possibility, Ade.
Okay, so I'm just wondering if we can, because especially I totally agree with what Mark said. I think we need to provide our members a lot of this information so that they can see what the money can buy. But we need to be careful not to raise the hope so high where it's not even attainable, because we're talking about billions with a B and we only have million with M. And chance of any of these working without increasing the cost to them or to the state or to the employer is close to zero. So if we can look at things that we can actually use the limited available fund to acquire for them, I think that should be part of the information that we can share with them. So just a thought. Thank you.
Thanks, Ade. All right, Executive Director.
All right. At the October meeting, we gave you a draft calendar for meetings for the upcoming interim. It was just based on sort of the general fourth Wednesday of every month. We didn't do any work with SIB as far as boardroom availability, because we are expecting everything to remain done virtually, online meetings, at least through session and perhaps longer next year. And then by that time, we'll no longer be located in the SIB building. The one exception to the fourth Wednesday was in November. That date butted right up against the Thanksgiving holiday. And so the draft calendar had the 17th, and it may be that the date of December 22nd is still a little bit too close to the Christmas holiday on Friday. But that's where we're looking at today. We've taken into account all the information that we had available on stakeholder conferences, so WACOPS, State Council of Fire. We looked at the conferences, the national educational conferences that the board members have used for trustee education, so NCPERS, International Foundation of Employee Benefit Plans, sort of their key dates to minimize conflicts. And that's what you're seeing before you. So we're looking for any changes to this calendar that you might have, and then also for an adoption, and then we'll notify the code revisor's office about the schedule for the upcoming year. We do have August. Yep. Go ahead, Dennis.
We got one change request. The June meeting is set for June 23rd, which actually would be our Wednesday for our state conference, state council convention.
Okay, so there was a conflict there that we missed. All right.
So I would suggest the 16th, which is the third Wednesday.
Okay, so June 16. All right. Did we miss any other conflicts? I know right now, Tarina, you're kind of the one, you're the WACOPS representative that's on there, but I don't know how much the future calendar for WACOPS is known. Teresa, Teresa, if you're seeing any conflicts and you want to send us a text, or maybe if we can identify you, we can unmute you and make sure we didn't miss anything with you guys. I know conference dates right now, especially for a year out, are in flux. Everybody's still trying to adjust to what next year is going to look like in terms of meetings or conferences. Are they going to be online? Are they going to be in person? Will they be smaller? Will dates need to be changed? We'll be as flexible as possible, but we wanted to kind of get at least the bones out today.
I sent Teresa a text also.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, everybody. This is Teresa Taylor with WACOPS. Thank you for even asking about scheduling. Really appreciate it. Obviously, lots is in flux. It looks like at a glance, we don't have any apparent conflicts. Steve, you might just want to note that our fall meeting is currently scheduled to happen the week of the 13th of September. So that'd be the week before you've got your proposed meeting date. And other than that, I don't see nothing jumps out at me, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Teresa. What about the December 22nd date? Does that work for you guys, or would a different date like say the 15th work better?
I'm open. I know that some people may be considering traveling, so I'm okay if you want to move it up. Doesn't matter right now. It works for me. The 15th would work as well.
This is Representative Bergquist. I think the 15th would probably be better, just in case.
All right.
WFOA, I don't know if Steve usually attend these. The Washington Finance Officers Association is September 21st through 24th in Spokane. So
15th.
Usually I try to attend that, but it doesn't affect most of us, but just want to throw that out.
You said December 21, correct?
September.
September, sorry. Okay, gotcha.
Right, 24th through 24th, right.
Steve, so we can make, without objection, we'll make the change in December.
Okay.
22nd to 15. And then odd days looking at the week of the 21 through 24,
So we could move it to September 15?
I would prefer to go the other way.
To September 29th?
Correct. That gives us about a month out to the next one as well. I just know that I'm probably going to be, hopefully, who knows, yeah. I just know there's a large IFF event right around September 11th. It's going to take me into that following week. So.
Okay. So then that would be, so the three changes would be June 16, September 29, and December 15.
Works for me. Anybody else? Any objection?
All right.
Steve, do we have to have a motion to adopt our calendar?
Yes. And I'm not 100% sure right now if we still have a quorum, but I think we do, but it would take a motion and a vote.
All right. Well, we'll find out. I would entertain a motion to adopt the calendar with the changes that I noted.
I'll second it.
Jeff Foley, so moved.
Motion's been made. Odd Day has seconded that motion for discussion, which I think we've already got. I'll turn it over to Steve. Go ahead. Why don't you do a vote, buddy?
AJ?
Yes.
Senator Holy?
Aye.
Senator Rivers? Representative Bergquist?
Aye.
Ade?
Aye.
Mr. Chair?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark Johnston?
Yes.
All right, I think that gives you a quorum and a majority vote, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Did I miss any board members?
I think you missed Senator Holy, I think, but I'm not sure.
No, you got everybody that was on the list, Steve.
Okay. All right, then we'll consider the calendar adopted. You'll be able to make changes as the year goes on. Again, all the meetings are planning on being virtual. They'll be very short, just legislative and administrative updates during session. Historically, you cancel the August meeting, but you don't have to do that now. You can vote on that next interim, depending on how things are going, whether you feel you need it or not. And we'll get this calendar published for you. The next meeting is December 16th. We'll give you an update on what the Select Committee has done with the interruptive military issue. They will have their final meeting before you guys meet. In the meantime, we will communicate with them your decision to defer consideration of this issue until next interim. We'll move forward, like we said, on getting the Benefit Improvement Account Information Center started and up and running, and we'll communicate that when it goes live. We'll communicate that to you as well. The only other admin issue I want to remind, we are still in the process of moving. Things are on track. We've got a location, and we're currently negotiating some of the tenant improvements with the landlord. He's been great to work with, and so we're optimistic that we are still on schedule to be in a new location next February in all likelihood. We should, hopefully it'll be done. It's a little bit different from where we're at now, where it's the facilities are really nice, but it's small and it's a little bit further away from the, here where we're just right across the hall from the state actuary and in the same building as the state investment board that has all your money. You couldn't ask for a better location, but it has been great to be here while we could be here and understand the need for the space from SIB. But we're hoping that the new space will be in some ways better, even though it's not quite as conveniently located. We're hoping it'll be maybe better meeting space for more conference room space, have some ability for board members to work there if necessary when you're visiting town, that kind of stuff that we're not well suited for now, and we'll be able to do in the future. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Without disclosing the exact location, whereabouts, kind of proximity?
Out by the Olympia Airport.
Okay.
So in Tumwater.
Yep.
That's very close to my office.
We would, yes, we'd be closer to DRS. We'd be closer to TOR. Not within walking distance, really, though, of anything. So we're still going to be driving. It'll be a little bit longer drive to Session. So if I get the call to be down there in 5 minutes, it might now take me 8 minutes, depending on how fast I'm driving. But it's it should still, like I said, we came up with a list of business goals that we needed a new location to meet, and it satisfies all of those goals, with the exception perhaps of the geographic location.
Has there been any more discussions on when that point comes where we can gather together again, where we will do that?
No. The original plan was to start identifying possible meeting locations. There, we've maybe on the Hill. We'd reached out to the SIB about using their, continuing to use their facilities, and there was a reluctance there, but the plan still is, and that'll be something we're working on as soon as we get moved in and we get a better idea of when the interim is going to start and whether the interim will include in-person meetings, Dennis, or a combination of in-person and electronic. We'll have a much better idea then about what options are going to be available. A lot of places actually now they're reconsidering the whole business of having facilities available for those kind of meetings, for these kind of meetings. So.
Any other questions or comments for Steve before we're done today? All right, hearing none, I'd entertain them.
So moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Oh, Steve?
Second.
Oh, hold on, I got all day.
The issue with Brian Wilson?
Oh, that's right. I apologize. So we were contacted, the board was contacted by a Left 2 retiree, Brian Wilson from the city of Federal Way. He was the police chief, retired, became the chief of staff. And there was a question about how his change in employment affected his pension. That issue has been working through the courts, and my understanding is it's finally been resolved, but he requested the opportunity to address the board about his experience and the potential need for, well, about his experience. He'd like to do that at the December meeting. We do allow for public testimony, but I wanted to give you guys a heads up about that so that we can make sure that that we're prepared for it, you know, technology wise.
All righty. Dave, do you have any more on that?
I would just like to share his experience, which I think can be, hopefully it can be useful to others, whatever that is. And so.
Thank you. All right, we had a motion made and seconded to adjourn. There's no other discussion. Steve, do you need a roll call on this, or?
No, I think a voice vote will be sufficient.
All righty, so all those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Those not in favor can stay online by yourselves.
Yeah, if the left two board team can stay online, we'll do our post-meeting debrief. Thank you all board members for your help in sorting these issues out for us. We appreciate your feedback on moving forward with this stuff. Thank you.
Steve, pass on to the team once again. Thank you very much, and happy Thanksgiving to you all. So be safe.
Thank you.
All right, be good. Thanks, everybody.